Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
This podcast is an IVM production, and you can also check out their other awesome shows like IVM Likes, a show for your weekly dose of pop culture recommendations, whether it's books, movies, or TV shows by the folks in the IVM office.
You're listening to the Drinks and Destinations podcast.
The wine industry in general is filled with many interesting stories. One of them is the story of family-owned businesses, especially the ones started by couples, the husband and wife duo who have left their well-paying jobs to pursue their common passion, the love of wine. We have one such couple from the Indian wine industry today, Kiran and Yatin Patil, owners of Vintage Wines, and joining us today in the studio is their winemaker, Mr. Andrea Valentinuzzi. And hi, I'm Rojita.
Hi, I'm Samira, and it's exciting to be here, Rojita. We have not had so many guests in the studio
Yes,
at one time, so luckily it'll be a very interesting session today.
Absolutely, because we're going to talk about not just Rivelo wines. We're also going to be, talking to Yatin and Kiran and ask them how exactly they started Rivelo wines and how has been the journey since 2005 when the first vintage came out. And of course, Andrea, an Italian working in the vineyards in India, how has been his experience so far? So it's going to be interesting.
Definitely. So I think we should dive right into it. What do you say?
Exactly. So let's begin with our D&D chat section.
D&D chat.
So,
hi guys.
Hi.
Hello. And thank you so much for being here with us in the studio today.
Our pleasure.
Well,
Yes.
so we're just going to start off first with Kiran and Yatin. Like, how did it all begin? Like, Rajita mentioned in her introduction, the comfort of leaving a well-paying job to follow your passion.
Right. I'm just going to turn back time to 2001. That's when the entrepreneurial bug just bit Yatin.
Yeah.
And he decided to call it quits. Prior to that, both of us having data management from respective colleges, we were well nestled into our corporate lives.
Okay.
We were doing a 9 to 9, Jake, pretty much what most of us did as earlier freshers. Yatin worked with in corporate finance primarily with corporates like Seat Tires and Iron Exchange before he deep dived into the wine industry. And I was always into real estate.
Oh.
So I worked for 8 years with 4 years with Rahejas and 4 years with Mahindras in their realty division. And 2001 is when we decided, it was actually his dad's idea to have a forward integration. And there was always an ancestral landholding of grapes. So the family always was into viticulture, but primarily table grapes. These are the grapes which we normally use for eating. And since wine was a sunrise industry way back in 2001, there weren't many players at that time, and the country had just taken to drinking wine.
Okay.
So that was the time, since there was a raw material backing, you had the entrepreneurial calling, and wine being a sunrise industry, Yatin did call it quits and decided to join in, while I continued with my work to keep the home fires burning as well. And he started off, and 2005 was when we were ready to crush the first vintage. Now, in the interim, the journey between 2001 and 5 is when we got the whole project ongoing. I mean, it was primarily then he devoted some time to get knowledge on the viticultural aspect. We planted the wine variety grapes. Of course, the project funding entailed a lot of time, discussion with the banks to get the whole thing going, the construction of the winery. But most importantly is scouting for a winemaker. Well, the project is in place, but how do we go about making the wine? Because beside theoretical knowledge, trust me, we had nothing. So we were almost teetotalers before we even got into this.
Oh.
And you met Andrea in 2003? I read somewhere
2005.
in 2005.
2005.
In one of the events, I think, Vinitli?
No, at Vinitli we met his friend,
Okay.
Luca, and Luca was the one who actually brought Andrea to India. Primarily because he spoke English. He was not like the other winemaker.
Yeah, he was boasting about his English a little while ago.
Absolutely. So that's how Andrea landed in India.
Okay.
And it's been a history since then.
Yes, and correct, because I remember they had visited Durban, Italy, scouting for a winemaker, and they did chance upon a consultancy who gave all the who would give us all the technological knowledge. So the entire technological arrangement in terms of the equipment, the know-how, and the winemaker, the most important part, was imparted by these consultants, of which Andrea was a part of. But now it's been just him.
But was it a conscious decision to actually go for an Italian winemaker instead of a French winemaker, maybe because that was a time when... or California? No, of course. I mean, it's just that, or it just happened to be at the right time and, you found Andrea and you realized that, of course, he is going to be the perfect winemaker.
It was a conscious decision, because a very close friend of Dad had a few consultancies in Italy, and when we started discussing this project way back in the late 90s, he said, why not get an Italian consultant? Because in India we already had 2 or 3 projects where you had French consultants, and then we said, they're already French consultants, why not look at something different? So you're looking at Italian, maybe an Australian, but the Australian harvest coincided with our harvest, so we said
there was no
Italian,
way you could do that.
and there were no Italian varietals, there were no Italian winemakers, and we thought probably that's a nice USP also, So
but I think the credit also goes to Andrea for bringing in the Italian varietals to India. You're the first one to introduce Nero d'Avola, Grillo, and Sangiovese in the country.
Loud. I want this to be...
You're the pioneer.
We are the first.
Yeah, and no one else does a Sicilian grape variety in the country, which is a great thing.
This was a decision between all of us. It was not my decision. It was between all of us. We try to understand now which variety can be suitable for this type of climate, which is not easy. It's not easy to growing grapes in India.
Of course, yeah.
So we decided to go to the south of Italy, where we achieve the same temperature, for obviously a small time compared to what you have in India, but using this as a parameter for our choice. And it works. I think we got good results. I'm proud about the Sicilian varieties. I'm also proud about Sangiovese, which was along with Sicilian varieties imported. And I think also the market, the sales, showing that was a good choice in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Sangiovese is doing really well in the Indian market.
Absolutely. These 3 varietals have actually come in as a breath of fresh air in an otherwise dominated by the classic French varieties. And I think we as consumers are always looking for something different.
Yeah, that's true.
Always.
And that's what I was going to ask you, was there an understanding that you did notice a trend among the consumers or the kind of wine they're liking over here, which helped you to decide to get this variety to India?
No, actually, the initial concept was, of course, as I told you earlier, that, when we started, predominantly there were 4 varieties.
Right.
So you had a Chenin Blanc, you had a Sauvignon Blanc, you had a Syrah, and you had a Cabernet Sauvignon. So we decided to do something different. So we already had Chardonnay that was planted. We focused a bit on...
Sauvignon Blanc?
No, not Sauvignon Blanc. Before that, Pinot Noir also.
Okay.
Oh, you had Pinot Noir as well?
Yeah, we had Grenache. We had Grenache. But, after a year or 2, Andrea was not happy with the Pinot Noir because it's a very sensitive grape.
Yeah, it's too delicate.
Yeah, Grenache, on the other hand, was too tough, and even our type of climate, it didn't mature well.
Yeah?
So he said,
so it needs much more warmer climate.
Yeah, because, after 6 months also you had, half of the bunch green and half was like pink, not even red. And, that's when he decided, let's do something different. And of course, we already had the plan of getting in the Italian varietals. That is why we first approached an Italian consultant. So the concept was there that, we wanted to go the Italian route, which no one had taken, so that was the path that we wanted to go along. And that's when we spoke to him and we sent soil samples. So he checked the soil samples over there. We gave him 3 or 5 years weather data. So he checked in Italy with his friends and, the nurseries or the scientists out there. And he suggested these 3 varieties. Out of that, actually, Grillo was also a choice made by me because, once when we got back from Italy, there was this bottle of Catarato Grillo, and we had exhausted all the bottles at home, which were like, your famous varietals. And Kiran and me were like, wondering, okay, this is this was the only bottle. So, chalo, let's try it. We didn't know what this variety was. And
it was a blend of Catarato and Grillo.
Grillo. Okay. And we were so pleasantly surprised that, I mentioned that to Andrea, and he said, okay, let's do the Grillo. And that's how Grillo came in. That's how Nero came in, and the Sangiovese. So,
but interesting part is no one else is even trying to produce these grapes in India.
Yeah, so Nero and Grillo, of
Nero
course, no one
Grillo,
has.
of course,
you have a couple
else.
of other guys doing the Sangiovese, but again, we are the first ones to get them in 2006. So that was the year that we brought the grafted vines, planted them in Nasik, and the first harvest was in 2009, and Sangiovese was in 2010. So that's how it all started.
So we're talking about the terroir in Nasik. Nifad is the winery is where it's located. It's 30 kilometers from the city of Nasik. 45 kilometers. So how is the terroir there different from the other parts of Nasik?
Over there you get a black loamy soil, which is rich on clay. It's quite a difficult soil to work with because during monsoon season, lot of water. This creates a problem to breed for the roots of the vines.
So there's a lot of water retention and there's no way out.
Exactly.
Drain it out. So how do you manage that? That must be a...
We do channels, we do whatever is possible, but obviously you cannot work below the surface. Over there, the only weapon we have is to choose the right rootstock, which can support this phase during the process. No, and on the other side, during the dry season, again you get cracks which can affect the roots again. In the dry season, we can work the soil, the surface of the soil, so we can reduce that problem. We can manage much better. But again, conditions are very stressful for growing grapes.
And does it affect the yield as well? You have to control the yield?
No, the soil is very rich. The black loamy soil is very rich compared to red sandy soil which you get in the other side of Nasik or south to Bangalore. This also can be a problem because a lot of salts dissolved has been used and bring into the juice by the roots. And this can be a problem to make stable the wine before bottling. Like cold stabilization is not an easy process with these wines. And you get 3-4 times the figures you get in Europe, which is nobody believes. Over there, nobody believes. I said, look, this is the problem, no? But again, on the other side, here the grapes are more rich in flavors and aromas. The wines are very salty, which is a very interesting thing, very good part of the quality. So this is the main difference between. You get the same black loamy soil in the east part of Europe, Romania, that side. You get the same, and I worked there. So in a way, I was comfortable
and
confident.
Yeah.
So this is the main difference.
And what's the difference between the Karnataka soil terroir and climatic condition and Nasik?
Okay.
Because you also work with the winery in Karnataka.
I would say Karnataka is very similar to Australia, South Australia, Maclara Valley, Adelaide, that area. And also South Africa, some parts of South Africa. It's very close to. To growing grapes probably is more easy in Karnataka than Nasik, at least if we are considering black soil, no? Because you have no problem waterlogging, no problems in terms of
too much
exchange.
Of rain.
But also the gas exchange between the soil and the atmosphere, which is important for roots and for the bio life in the ground. So
So
but
would you
suggest you don't get the same flavors, the same aromas in Bangalore.
But would you say that it's much easier, maybe, to produce organic wines in Karnataka than Nasik? In future, maybe?
I don't say that. No. No. It's nothing like that.
I just want your opinion because no one in India is doing it.
What I said is it's more easy to grow in grapes.
Yeah.
But you can do bio wines here, there, same.
But do you think India can actually get into the organic wine production in any time in near future? Because we have
What do you consider organic wine? What's
you
your idea about organic wine?
No use of fertilizers or chemicals and as less human intervention as possible in making that wine.
Personally, I don't believe that is the way.
Okay.
Because you don't get the best fruit in a jungle. So we train the vines, we grow in the vines, we do certain things during the cycle, not because somebody has wake up in one day, I have nothing to do, let's do this. This come after thousands of years of trials and this and that. No? So we reach this technology after many years. And today somebody says, no, we have to go back to the wild, don't do anything. Let's see what will happen. No, organic wine, according to me, today, all the wine are try to be organic in the sense that we try to use less substances which are not necessary. Today, using a lot of products for this, for that, it's also more costly than the efficiency and the end of result. So, in Europe, when you're talking about organic wine, SO2 level is the same to not organic. Yeah. If you're talking about biodynamic wines, that's a totally different story. Yeah. But it's a totally different concept. And so, today the trend is to interfere less as possible during the process. This is possible only if you get very good raw material. Means in the winery you cannot make miracles. My personal philosophy is a good winemaker is able to preserve what nature has done in the vineyard. So if you give me very good quality grapes and I'm a good winemaker, I will preserve as much as possible whatever is in those grapes. If you give me bad quality grapes, I cannot make a good wine from that.
Of course.
So I'm not a magician, I cannot change that. This is my opinion, my personal opinion.
No, I completely agree with you, I think.
And also I want to ask you, like, being an Italian winemaker who's had a fair bit of journey in India, so if you had to, like, tell someone else, you know, who's probably aspiring to come to India as well, what would you say that from your journey, the things that have pleasantly surprised you and maybe disappointed you a little bit?
Challenges that you faced.
Yeah, that's not nice to ask. What disappointing me?
Okay, no, but the things you've been happy about.
It's not a question of disappointing. The question is, see, we are not used to see so many crowd, so many people.
Yeah, it's the whole culture.
For us is something very, very strange. Yeah. And so it creates a shock, no? In a way.
Of course.
Because...
but now you like it.
So.
Now you go back home and you're like, where are the people?
See, I'm an old man, so I like to little bit of... Right. No, apart from jokes, India is a very tough experience. I must say, the first time I land in Mumbai, I was shocked. When I get out from the airport, traffic, messy, everybody horn. And most of the time I don't understand why. Because no reason, no. If you're stuck in the queue and they still horning, where to go? Everybody is stopped there, so why are you...
Right, no? We ask the same question all the time.
So,
seriously.
but see, what is very interesting is how you approach life, which is total different concept from what we have in Europe. No?
So we were talking about the audience. You tell me, how has Rivelo been positioned in the minds of consumers, and how has it changed in the last few years? Because you handle a lot of marketing aspect of the wines, and you interact with a lot of consumers. And I remember you told me once that you always prefer to go for the events which let you interact with the consumers directly.
That's
so
right.
you have a very good insight towards the consumer mindset and things that have changed in the last few years.
Right. What we've seen, to start with, Rivelo has always positioned itself as a premium wine, basically a boutique winery which makes quality wine. We have never been in the number game. We've never been in the race for achieving certain numbers, but yes, quality is something which we've never compromised on. I'm sure Andrea will vouch for that. So right since day one, it's been a premium quality wine from a boutique winery. Where the consumers are concerned, I think that from our range of Rivelo products, we have something for every consumer. There is a light-bodied wine, there is a heavy-bodied wines. For the more discerning ones, we have a premium reserve range which people take on to. So there is something for everyone. Consumers have accepted the product beautifully along with the price point that it comes at. But where the change is concerned, yes, people have got much more educated now.
Yeah.
I remember when the Grillo was launched, I remember doing it at the Ambrosia function where you were there with you at the Mumbai Wine Club event.
Yeah.
From there to today has been a long journey. People now ask specifically for the Grillo. Yes, I think this phenomenon is more confined to the metros since we are also available in just the 3 major metros in India. But I think that's a start. Earlier it was just a red and white. Now people are asking for specifics very clearly. Can I have a Chardonnay? Can I have a Grillo? They are moving on from the more usual variants to the more different ones, unique ones they want to try. What is another thing that I've noticed about people, they want to try different things and they are ready to pay a price for it. And they are ready to be loud about it also in their views and opinions. So people are pretty objective where wine is concerned, be it red or white.
But what do you think are the factors that this change has come about? Like, how has this change in outlook of people come about?
A, of course, function of time. B, people are more traveled now.
Yeah.
They're traveling much more. The disposable incomes have increased. The real income of people have increased. And yes, wine is becoming a preferred drink.
And
Again,
maybe a
there's
little
the
bit
health.
contribution from the media.
Yes, a lot.
Just maybe.
You've got much more active now. No, a lot, I think. And it's a word of mouth that spreads because ever since we started, of course, it was not a smooth journey right from day one. It's been a function of time where the word has spread. Not just about Rivelo, but about wine in general.
Wine in general.
Like, who would have thought in 2005 that there'd be a podcast on that?
Imagine that we'd be sitting here.
By the way, Rivelo was the first winery that I visited in India.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 2007, I think.
Okay.
2006-07.
Yeah.
So that was the first state-of-the-art winery
Oh, wow.
in India, the new winery.
Correct.
And the first article I wrote about any Indian winery was vintage wines. So
we've
it's
come
been
a long
like really
way.
long, really long way.
Correct. So people are definitely much more educated, like I said. They are aware of their choices and even the offerings from the other side of the table, restaurants. Even their offerings have increased in terms of wine. Their wine lists have become more spread. There's a lot of international wines here now on offer.
Yeah.
So there's always an immediate comparison. But like I said, the category in general is growing. We all have our battles to fight on the market front for your share of the pie. But people are taking to the drink. And again, there's that health angle always involved. You
Right.
always think a glass of red wine does good to you.
That one meme does the rounds.
I think education also is crucial over here,
Yeah.
Most of the wineries have been
Yeah.
investing in terms of wine
Educated staff
education.
members as well.
Throughout the chain, So we train hotel staff, we train consumers. Tastings are carried out. Many places, whenever Andrea's there, we take him. Almost for 7 or 8 years, we had a whole-time trainer with us, who would go to all the outlets where we are available and just train. And this has been happening across the board, So you have trainers from other wineries, who've been constantly training and educating people.
It's
and I
very
think,
important.
Yeah, absolutely. And this actually has brought out a big difference.
Yeah, because those are the guys who are actually facing the consumers and they are going to
Absolutely.
suggest the wines to
Yes.
people. So they
Yes.
need to understand which wine goes with what kind of food and,
Correct.
what wines to be tasted. And so it is very
No,
important.
and as Kiran said, earlier it was just red and white. And most of the wineries would also do a lot of blends. that is when we had decided that no, we are only going to do single varietals. Let people know the difference between two varieties.
Yeah.
Let people know a difference between a Syrah and a Cabernet. Not that, everyone is having a Cab Shiraz and give me a red wine, a Cab Shiraz, So that's again something different that we tried to do.
So you have only single varietals,
Yeah,
no
only
blends at
single,
all?
No blend till date. I'm sure Andrea also says, the best wines in the world are blends actually. You talk of a champagne or...
And Italy, Super Tuscans and...
Absolutely.
Chianti Classicos and Brunellos.
No, wait. Chianti. Okay, but anyway, you're right.
Yeah.
No.
Blend. Even a Chianti Classico needed few other things to make it perfect, right? It's not 100% Sangiovese.
It's a very dangerous...
Yeah, I know. But it sometimes requires a little bit of touch of this and that. But you've maintained a single varietal status for so long. I think it's an incredible job.
See, one decision that we've taken is, A, we're always going to make wine from vine varietals. B, they're going to be single varietals, So apart from this, you can always experiment on the other stuff. So, this is our guiding point or guiding post or lighthouse that you can call. But, we're going to stick by it.
All right. So let's go on a short break. And when we come back, we talk more with Yatin about the All India Wine Producers Association.
Hi, I'm May, and I'm a huge fan of the indie music scene in our country. A scene that's relatively underground, even though it sometimes speaks its head overground, but there's no shortage of talent, and I get the privilege of interviewing some of the most awesome musicians on my show. I've had the likes of Euphoria, Krish Kale, Hardcore, Randolph Correa. I've had singer-songwriters, folk singers, electronic music producers, playback singers, rappers, fusion artists, instrumentalists, classical musicians, and so on. Whether mainstream or not, these people have chosen to release their original music, and these are the people currently shaping the direction in which our music scene is heading. Join me on my show every Monday and tune in to discover the unique talent coming out of India today. You can catch Made in India on your favorite podcasting app or our very own IVM podcast app.
Welcome back, and we are in conversation with Kiran and Yatin Patil and Andrea today in our studio. And Yatin, you are the president of All India Wine Producers Association, and this role is something which would require you to also work for the industry. So how has it been since 2015, your appointment? Yeah. And how many members are there in the association?
It's been 2 years. We are almost 100 members actually. I'm sure you know that there are far lesser wineries operational today, but of course we've got about 100 members, including Maharashtra, Karnataka, Goa, one winery from Tamil Nadu, one from MP.
Yeah.
So, that's been the range kind of. It's been a challenging job, primarily because, again, wine or any alcohol is a state subject. So, there's nothing that happens at a national level. Though you have the FSSAI at the moment, which operates at the national level, but then everything else is at the state level. So, every state has its own issues and you have to tackle them at the state level itself, So, with that context, it's been challenging. Plus, if you see the environment today, you have your liquor bans and alcohol abolition and all that stuff happening. Again, it's been a tough time. Recently, we had the Supreme Court ruling of not permitting liquor shops or bars within 500 meters. That's been a big setback again to the alcobev industry. And this actually has not only hit the alcobev, but even hit the restaurant business.
Yeah.
I'm sure in Maharashtra, there are 25,000 licenses, out of which 15 just go off with this one judgment. So you're just left with 10,000 licenses, and
which is a big loss for the state.
Big loss, relocation has been difficult. Moving them or starting new outlets has been very difficult. Since then, I'm sure, of course, this in the long-term scenario is just going to be a blip. I foresee this probably for another couple of months, and then things should streamline. That is what we expect.
So there's one more thing that I always think, that every country which is a wine producing region, they have a wine board which works really actively in promoting the wines from the region. So what are your plans, and has there been any development in that front? Like, because there was a talk of having a wine board in India as well, but that didn't materialize, I think.
So we had this Indian grape processing board. See, the basic problem again is, we as Indians do not promote or do not talk about alcohol or wine that openly as, you would see probably in Australia taboo, or Europe, or it's still a big social taboo. So again, we had this Indian grape processing board. So you had your raisin manufacturers, then you had wineries, and then you had grape producers, all part of this board. This board again was shut down because of some issues with the industry. You know that the industry has been not doing that well in the recent past, and the industry was to contribute as part of the functioning of the board, which the industry couldn't, and hence the board was shut down. But the recent talks with the Ministry of Food Processing has been very positive. They're looking at restarting the board. We just had a meeting 2 months back with the Ministry of Food Processing, the Secretary and Joint Secretary, and they're very keen to start the board. They had invited a couple of people from the industry, members from the Niti Aayog, members from the NRCG, that's the National Research Center for Grapes. And there was a consensus amongst all members that, you should start this board again, because, this industry needs a board, a platform, in terms of policy making at least,
Yeah.
So I expect this board to start very soon, and that would be a good step. Apart from that, you have the Karnataka Wine Board. Maharashtra has its efforts on to also have a Maharashtra Wine Board. So, there has been a lot of work that's been happening. Let's see how it materializes.
And when it comes to representing India in the international market, that's also one of your responsibilities,
Absolutely.
I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how has that been?
So I was at the recent OIV conference that was in Paris, and at the moment OIV itself is formulating rules and regulations pertaining to additives and ingredients. And this also has been taken up by India in terms of FSSAI, where FSSAI is also formulating rules and regulations for wines. Mind you, as on date, we do not have any rules and regulations.
Of course,
and that's the reason why some or many of the producers do whatever they want.
Yeah, sometimes the wines should be categorized as fortified wines that are sold as wines. And there's no rule as such.
There's no rule as such, So, as I said, anything and everything is happening. More so because, again, Maharashtra has waived off excise duty up to 2021. So, the government control, again, has not been that much. Again, we are looking at the OIV rules and regulations, which OIV, again, has 50 members all across the world. So, these rules are formulated taking into consensus all these members. So, definitely, as per the OIV rules, wine can only be made from grapes. So, all your other stuff is technically called fruit-based wines, or, you could call it anything else. But, wine technically is just made from grapes.
Fermented fruit juice or something like that.
Fruit juice, exactly. So, that is one. And, you already have rules and regulations laid out for that under the OIV. And India being the 45th member of OIV, we would also have to follow the same rules and regulations. So, we cannot be far away from those rules and regulations. And you rightfully mentioned that, only wine varietals to be used. Of course, the OIV rules don't clearly mention that. It just says grapes.
Okay.
But the day we start doing that, start making wine only from wine varietals, I'm sure the quality producers would get a big boost. And in general, the consumers are going to benefit, because most of the stuff that you're having under port wine, I'm sure no one knows.
Yeah, they're not even drinkable.
Yeah, no one knows what it is and what.
And legally we're not even allowed to call them port wine because
you're not.
Yeah,
you're not.
But still we call it port wine, so it's.
Yeah, I have mentioned that to the FSSAI because. Port wine, is like your champagne. So only
they have the geographical identification.
They have a GI, so that's with Portugal.
Yeah.
So there's a Douro Valley in Portugal.
Yeah.
So wine made over there only can be called as a port wine. So you cannot call any other wine as port wine.
We'd
just
spoken
like,
about that in our Portugal episode, in fact. Yeah.
Okay.
So
there are many GIs, just like your port wine, So all that needs to be clarified, So once you have your FSSAI guidelines out on the basis of the OIV guidelines, I'm sure things would somewhere settle down.
So one last question to both of you. How does it work? Being husband and wife, being in the same business, and how is the dynamic working?
It's not working.
Said the third person.
The way it works is the kids also get involved.
Yeah, that's
So,
the future.
so what
So the
happens
budding
No. What happens is whenever we are on a vacation or we are out on a dinner, the kids would warn us, no office talks. Only then we are going to come. Okay, fine. So that is how it works.
Actually, we never stop talking shop. Because everything around us, is related to develop.
You both are so passionate about
I think and that
the
kind
business.
of is the reason why it's doing so well.
I don't know, but that is a link in a way, and we synergize. Of course, we all have our arguments in that space, but I think we synergize. We complement each other because we both have our own set of strengths. So ultimately, we do
I have to, Andrea's smirking away to glory, and I'm dying to know what he has to say. What is your take on that?
He's loving to
Have you been the peacemaker at times?
No, never like that.
Okay.
But see, my wife also works with me, so I know exactly what she tried to say. It's not easy. According to me, it's not easy.
Yeah, and what about the dynamics with three of you? Are they often arguments and...
Peacemaker.
Yes, he's a peacemaker.
Yatin is a peacemaker. I can imagine that.
I play dumb many times. I play blind, dumb, whatever you want me to now. We've all learned over the years.
Nice.
Well, whatever it is, but the dynamics actually work because we begin to get really good wines from Ribello's portfolio, and
I hope we continue to do so.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, everything is demarcated, So Andrea has a job, Kiran has hers, I have mine. I remember, a couple of years back, a lot of people from the family used to say, Andrea makes the wine, Kiran sells the wine.
What are you
I had
doing?
my cousin looking after the winery. Dad looks up the vineyard.
What are you doing?
What do you do? And
What did
there
you
was a big
say to
question
that?
mark on my face. I said nothing. I just ensure that all these guys are doing their job.
You need someone to overlook everything, right?
So that sums about it,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Great. Thank you so much, guys,
Most
for
welcome.
being in the
Pleasure
studio
talking to
today.
you all.
It was
Thanks, Rojita
such a
and Samira.
Thank you. It was
Wonderful
lovely.
talking to you.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So that's all for today, guys. You can tune into the Drinks and Destinations podcast on any podcast app. You can also download the IVM podcast app on iOS and Android. You can also give us your reviews and suggestions on drinksanddestinations@gmail.com. Also tune into our next episode every fortnight. And remember, while we all love our tipple, make sure that you drink responsibly. Bye.
एक्सक्यूज मी भैया, एक्सक्यूज मी,
बोलिए मैडम।
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, ड्रिंक्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर जकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है। आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम। आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप, सब आपकी उंगलियों पे।